It was nearly midnight when Adrian Cole, a 35-year-old single father with exhaustion carved beneath his eyes, finally stepped out of the dimly lit ballroom of Westcott Enterprises' annual gala, balancing his phone in one hand as he read a message from his 8-year-old daughter, Daddy, are you coming home soon? I finished my project, his heart clenched. He had promised her they would rehearse her presentation together tonight, but like most things in his life lately, fatherhood was forced to wait behind survival. As he made his way toward the exit, politely avoiding eye contact with the wealthy elite still swirling champagne and gossip, he heard muffled commotion near the hotel's private side entrance, hushed voices, aggressive male laughter, then a familiar soft voice slurring in protest. Adrian's pulse spiked. He followed the sound down the corridor and froze at the sight. His boss, the notoriously untouchable Vivian Hart, CEO and ice queen of the corporate world, was visibly intoxicated, swaying helplessly while two predatory business associates cornered her, attempting to escort her to a waiting car she clearly didn't consent to. Cameras were lurking. One wrong photo, her career, and by extension everyone under her, would go up in flames. Adrian knew that staying silent was the safer move, but his conscience moved faster than fear. "Ma'am, there you are," he said firmly, stepping between them like an instinctive shield, his tone formal yet unshakably protective. He placed his hand slightly against her arm, not to control, but to anchor her, and with sharp corporate authority that surprised even him, he turned to the men. "Ms. Hart asked me to drive her home personally. The board is still waiting for her call." The men retreated, annoyed but unwilling to test the risk. Vivian's glazed eyes blinked, attempting to register who had just pulled her from disaster. She leaned onto him as he guided her away discreetly, his jacket around her shoulders to hide her state, protecting not just her, but her reputation. In the car, she sat quietly, head against the window, the cold, feared CEO looking strangely fragile. "Why, did you help me?" she murmured, voice threaded with an intoxicated honesty no one ever heard from her. Adrian glanced at her through the mirror. "Because someone should have." She didn't reply, but her breathing softened, no longer anxious. When they reached her penthouse, he steadied her inside, ensuring she was safe before leaving. She paused in the doorway before he turned away. Her eyes, for a moment, were painfully human. As though she wanted to say something. Instead, she whispered only, "Thank you, Adrian." The first time she had ever said his name. He walked away quietly into the cold night, unaware that tomorrow, everything would change, because this time, she wouldn't pretend to forget. The office atmosphere the next morning was painfully ordinary. The kind of routine corporate hum where keyboards clicked like synchronized insects and people pretended not to be waiting for gossip. Adrian walked in carrying a small lunchbox with hand-drawn stickers from his daughter, trying to keep his head low as always. Nobody except security cameras knew he was the last to leave last night, and if the universe was merciful, it would stay that way. But the moment he stepped past the reception, every employee snapped to attention, because Vivian Hart had arrived not in her usual sleek limo and signature glacier-like detachment, but early, walking in herself, hair tied, expression unreadable, radiating a different kind of awareness. She walked past every employee, then stopped. In front of him. In a silent office with 50 people watching. Adrian. "My office." Now, dead silence. People looked at him like he had been promoted, or sentenced to death. He followed her up to the glass executive floor, pulse thundering. Inside her private office, the doors shut soundlessly behind them. She didn't sit. She looked at him, not with the cold superiority she was worshipped and feared for, but with unsettling clarity. "You drove me home last night," she said. Not an accusation. A statement. Adrian kept his composure. "Yes, ma'am. You were in a vulnerable situation." Vivian inhaled steadily. "I remember everything." That, genuinely shocked him. CEOs in her position had the luxury of selective memory. But her eyes, they weren't defensive. They were aware. She walked toward the espresso machine herself, something nobody in this building had seen her do, and without looking at him asked, "Do you take it black or with sugar?" He froze. It wasn't a joke. She was making him coffee. Just black, he managed. She brought it to him. Personally. The world might as well have stopped spinning. Then she said the most un-Vivian Hart thing imaginable, "Sit." He hesitated, she noticed. "Relax, Adrian. If I wanted to fire you, I wouldn't offer coffee first." He sat. She remained standing, almost as if pacing a confession only she understood. Nobody else must know about last night. She finally met his eyes, but not in threat. In trust. "Not because of me," she added quietly. "But because people like them don't stop." She was talking about the predators. The danger he shielded her from. And for a moment, the woman the world called untouchable looked, tired of being hunted. Adrian simply nodded. "I understand." She exhaled slowly. "Good." Then, to his world-altering shock, she said softly, "Thank you, Adrian. For not being like them." The conversation ended there. But when he walked out, the entire office stared. Because for the first time ever, she followed him with her eyes. As if he mattered, and everyone saw it. By noon, the office had transformed from a temple of spreadsheets into a battlefield of whispers. The moment Adrian left Vivian Hart's office that morning, carrying a coffee cup she'd personally handed him, the rumor mill exploded, word spread like wildfire, faster than truth could ever run. He spent the night with her, someone whispered near the break room. She called him by his first name, another added. By the time Adrian sat at his desk, he could feel the invisible spotlight burning on his back. He'd been with the company 5 years, always invisible, always dependable, but now every glance felt like judgment. When he checked his phone, a message from his daughter, "Daddy, did you remember to pack your lunch?" Grounded him again. He smiled faintly. At least one person in the world didn't think he was anything more than just Dad. Around 11, a knock on the glass startled him. Vivian stood there, no warning, no assistant. "Cole," she said simply. "Walk with me." His co-workers froze mid-typing as she led him past the cubicles like a scene from a movie none of them could understand. They ended up outside on the rooftop terrace, a place usually reserved for executives. The wind tugged at her hair as she stared out at the skyline. "I know what they're saying," she said calmly, without turning. Adrian didn't respond, there wasn't much he could say without making things worse. "Let them," he finally muttered. "People will believe what fits their comfort." She looked at him then, the faintest trace of admiration flickering in her gaze. "You're not afraid of them, are you?" "Only afraid of losing my job," he said with an honest half-smile. She almost, smiled back. "That won't happen," she said. "Not while I'm here." The words carried weight. They weren't professional reassurance, they were personal protection. She owed him more than she could admit publicly, and she knew it. Later that afternoon, Adrian went to pick up his daughter, Lily, from school, her tiny hand slipping into his as they crossed the street. What he didn't know was that Vivian, from her car parked nearby, saw the entire scene, the gentle way he knelt to tie Lily's shoelace, the laughter that replaced all the silence he carried at work. It softened something inside her she hadn't felt in years. Compassion. Admiration. Maybe even guilt for how easily she had dismissed men like him. That evening, as she reviewed reports in her penthouse, her mind wasn't on numbers or projections, it was on the mechanic-turned-assistant who had looked danger in the eye for her without expecting a thing in return. Down in his small apartment, Adrian read Lily a bedtime story, unaware that his act of decency had done something extraordinary. It had reached the heart of a woman everyone thought didn't have one, and this time, the rumors, didn't scare her. They intrigued her. The next morning began like any other, until it didn't. Adrian was quietly organizing files when a loud pounding shook the office halls. An aggressive team of corporate auditors arrived unannounced, demanding financial clearance. They were from the board, not the government, which meant one thing: someone inside was trying to take Vivian down. The air turned electric with fear. Employees panicked, whispering treasonous theories. Adrian watched from a distance, until he overheard his own name being mentioned. "He's the reason she's compromised." "A distraction," someone said viciously. Before he could react, Vivian's voice cut through the chaos from the executive floor, cold, sharp, commanding. "Everyone. Conference room. Now." When the entire staff gathered, the auditors began questioning her authority, subtly accusing her of fraternization and claiming her judgment had been compromised. Adrian stood at the very back, tense. They tried to corner her, until one of them smugly said, "Word is, you've been personally involved with lower staff." The entire room turned to Adrian. The humiliation was public. Silence rippled like a knife, until Vivian stepped forward. "Yes," she said, voice steady, shocking everyone. "With one employee." The entire room froze. Adrian's heart stopped. "But then," she continued. "The one employee who saved this company last night." Gasps erupted. "When two board investors, under the influence, attempted to take advantage of me, it was Adrian Cole who stopped them. Not security. Not management. Him." Her voice was now a blade. "If loyalty and integrity are considered fraternization, then maybe this company needs a new definition of professionalism." She turned, and locked eyes with Adrian, in front of everyone. Not with shame, but with pride. The auditors were stunned. Nobody expected Vivian Hart, the woman famed for emotionless discipline, to defend anyone so openly. The board retreated, shaken, knowing the scandal would now be on their hands instead. One by one, employees began to realize the truth: Adrian wasn't a rumor. He was the reason their CEO was still untouchable. When the crowd dispersed, Vivian walked toward Adrian, no longer hiding. "I don't forget people who protect me," she said softly. She glanced at his trembling hands, not fear, but disbelief. "You shouldn't walk home alone tonight." At 5 p.m., for the first time ever, Vivian Hart personally walked down from the top floor, to meet Adrian and his daughter Lily at the lobby. No assistant. No bodyguards. As Lily shyly waved up at the tall elegant woman, Vivian actually knelt. "Hi, Lily," she said gently. "May I walk you both home today?" The watching employees nearly forgot how to breathe. And that was the moment everything changed, because for the first time in her life, she didn't pretend she didn't care, she didn't hide it. She didn't erase it. She chose it. Publicly. It wasn't the end. It was the beginning, of something the world would never expect from a woman like her, and a man like him.